So, Lysander, what's a specific application instance that we all know that is a candidate for modernization, and why is it a focus?
Well, we've got one in our current project that has existed for a few years now, and I think it suffers from a few things. Its inception, we didn't have any architecture that really looked at setting up a solution that was going to last for a long time. And really, I think what happened was we had a business problem. That person that had the idea went to a developer and said, hey, we've got this problem, we need you to solve it. That developer went off and created a solution with the
skill sets they have.
Yeah, with the skill sets that they have. The solution that they came up with solved that specific problem, but the reality was we needed a more robust solution, right? So the thing that was built does one thing okay, but now we're trying to get it to do 20 things, and it's not meeting the need. We're at the point now where we're taking a step back, looking at.
Well, to fill in some of the specifics, from an infrastructure standpoint for this application, we've got one gentleman that knows how to support it. We've got limited documentation for it. We tried to install it in a new environment, and it took 4 people 2 days.
Yeah.
And then even the one place where it's installed in production, it takes 2 large-size servers just to service 2 clients to gather the information and send it. So from a infrastructure supportability cost, and then every time it has problems, one of the ops guys and this developer have to get on the phone together and go touch it.
And it's not that complicated of an application. So, there isn't a ton of code within this thing, and it doesn't
run it.
Well, it doesn't do a lot, but it takes a lot of horsepower to run it, right? So, when you look at the lines of code in it, you'd be surprised that it takes that much effort to operate it, to run it, to maintain. Because when we have to fix it, it's a challenge to fix it too. Because, if something breaks in production, we don't have copies, or we don't have the ability to see what is happening in production in our lower environment. So, our ability to reproduce issues so that the developer can fix things quickly is limited. So again, he's coming back to your teams and saying, okay, let's hop on the production databases to see what's going on, and then try to.
Which we love doing. It's always fun to go play in prod.
Yeah, and then try to pull some of that information down to recreate it so that we can. So all of these things are things that we're looking at when we're looking at the next version of this thing, and we're going to try to solve for. So these are technical debt things.
Well, but they're actual financial cost to doing that. The effort of making an ops guy and a developer go log into a server to figure out why one message didn't send last night costs a lot of money. Or if a developer is on vacation, are we calling him on vacation? All these things, when I look at an application like that, make me want to go, we need to do this. We need to modernize. Well, we need to fix it. And if we look at it, the codes aren't very long. It's also a good time to, rather than just put a Band-Aid on it or just try to knowledge share on it, to try to take it to the next level and says, what can we do to make that better long term? And then you open the question, from an architecture, how do we start the architecture wagon on an old piece of code? Do you need like a little ding, ding, ding before I'm about to make that left-hand turn?
No, I can see you switching. I can see that switching. Let me phrase it like this. Architecting a solution that's already been built is probably similar to, all of a sudden wanting to apply security to an application that's already been built, doing things after the fact. That whole architectural conversation and design should have happened up front. All right, so now you're just trying to fix whatever the problem is, or you're gearing yourself up for a fair amount of refactoring type effort. If you're going to go through and re-architect, redesign the solution as a whole, then you're just going to scrap it and rewrite it. You maybe use it for spare parts. But even then, you got to pick out what the best option or the best path forward is, depending on how big the problem actually is. It sounds like in this instance that Lysander's describing, I would probably take a holistic approach to it, go back, look at it from an architectural perspective, considering all the requirements and the NFRs that go along into it, the things that this thing needs to do and support and how operational it needs to be, and then look and putting a proper design around it. I'd go back to the beginning and look at it from the very beginning instead of trying to fix it.
Well, and the other thing is the business also wants and needs to sell the solution, but the solution in its current state doesn't meet the need, right? So there's additional capabilities that need to be created for this product.
So do you wait for that sale?
Wait for this. No, I think we need to fix it so that we can enable the additional capability, but then also address all of the technical debt that's in it, right? Because to put more on top of a shaky foundation, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, and noting the size of this application, we said it's small, but small code base, larger problem. Does it make sense to just start it over? We're not talking about rewriting a million lines of code. We're talking, about a small code base. So why wouldn't we just go in fresh and start with a fresh architecture, a fresh set of requirements, and rewrite it?
I think we may do that, and to your point about using it for spare parts, that's probably what will wind up happening. And we've got to look at the larger set of requirements to get the capabilities that we need, and to enable those capabilities. The other thing that we're doing that we didn't do initially is we're looking at off-the-shelf software. There might be things out in the marketplace that will accelerate, and there's other companies that have solved parts of the problem where we can, pull in those components, use those, fill in the gaps, and create a more robust, complete solution faster than, frankly, if we were to try to do everything from scratch ourselves.
Yeah, and I would agree. That's part of, re-architecting the solution, whether we are going to take all the customization in-house or we're going to buy off the shelf or a combination, hybrid approach to it.
But to how do you get in those types of situations? I think that you have the business goes and sells something, or you have an immediate need, and you have someone that can go and write it. So you try to solve the need. And this happens a lot in other IT projects where, you have a Band-Aid, so you put the Band-Aid on today. And you keep putting more and more Band-Aids on these projects until they fall over. And then you're forced to write from the beginning, ground up. But I'm sure that's what happened with this. They had one specific thing they needed to write. So they said, hey, go write it. And then 6 months later, it's like, hey, can I do this too? Sure, we can do that. Mm-hmm. And you just keep digging the hole until there's no way out.
Right, but as Lysander was saying, you get into that start. Some guy, some product guy goes to a developer, requests something. Developer says, yeah, I can do that. Goes off in a vacuum, cranks out some code, comes back, says, here you go. They put it out out into the wild, and
without a lot of QA either.
Without a lot of anything else at all, right? And now you have that. This is building that how did we get here story, because you had nobody vetting requirements, you had nobody reviewing the architecture design of the solution, you had nobody testing potentially the solution or its operational capabilities once it's actually installed, or requirements around once it's actually been deployed. And now here you are. And then further, how can we add on to this nice little solution at the time maybe to be able to monetize it even further? We can't, because we didn't consider all of these other things.